I think it's just common sense. And if you run a company, you understand what the issues are. But anywhere within any environment, you have to really. It's surprising. You just have to look at the very simplicity of it. You have to really kind of establish what it is that what it is that really makes your business run, and establish what data needs to support that. What metrics are needed essentially to gauge how you're doing, and some of those very simple things, and then prioritize them, obviously, because that's the whole point. People say we don't have enough data, or we have too much data. You hear that a lot in our energy these days. But if you look at the essence of what you really do and look at the value that specific areas data, what are the key things that you need to have, and then establish, of course, all of the other things in regards to how, the timing of it, who's responsible for it, and then from that go towards how do you get that data in, how do you have it quality data, and how can you use it best within your organization. And then one of the areas that I'm very interested in, of course, with Jive and some of the work that you ladies have done, I've read up on you too, is of course people seem to forget the whole aspect of the people aspect of it, the people, the process, and not just the technology aspect of the data. And that part of planning that out is, I think, absolutely critical to the success.
So I'll add, in terms of digitizing your business, I think you started to touch on it, which is everything today can be digitized and actually should be digitized because it has a life longer than if you keep it in a drawer or put it somewhere that you can't use it later. So the beauty of digitizing your data is that it always exists for you, for trending, for understanding, for comparison purposes, and for learning. But the thing that people don't think about a lot is, well, how do I actually make this data accessible to the right people at the right time? And then what do I do with it to make decisions, to create team groups, to hit the right objectives? And so I think there's a whole new way that we need to think about digitizing our businesses, and not just process and not just the technology, but now what does that do to change our jobs? What does it do to make us more effective? And what does it do to help us be able to drive decision making that would never have been made as fast or as quickly if you didn't have access to this information? So we think about this a lot in terms of how do you create the right accessibility with the right identity. So who are you in the organization? And then what access to data should you have? And how do you make that as simple and as open as possible?
So to add a slightly different flavor of things, so I have worked in technology in and around manufacturing my entire career. And one of the things I've noticed about the digitization of business is that when you work in a capital-intensive business, so our customers buy things that cost a great deal of money, and the expectation is that they will have a life for decades. So when you're in that world, I have to say that sometimes you have to take a risk before you know exactly how you're going to use the data or commercialize the data or be able to make some kind of a business model out of it, investing in the ability to get the data so that you can do the trending, so that you can have an understanding of how that data might be useful in the future. Because one of the things that at least in a world that is capital intensive, if you can't get it out in the field, then you're not going to be able to get that data for 10, 15, 20 years until that product turns. And if you look at what's going on in the energy business, if you look at how difficult the last year and probably another year is going to be for all of us, part of what is making it sustainable for some of the customers in oil and gas, so some of my customers in oil and gas, would be that they're finding ways to make their fields far more efficient. And one of the ways they do that is using data that came from that digitization of the product. So I see it as a total life cycle on how we enable our customers and the business.
Can I just add to that? So I don't know, the company I started, Merrick, I don't know if you know it, but about 40% of the wells in the U.S. use our technology. We're upstream. And we were the earlier ones who came out with capturing data in the field. We're known for our field data capture product. And so essentially when we did that, just to tell you, this is only, we're talking about the 80s here, the 90s here, and when we went out there and started putting handhelds and things in the hands of these guys who are pumpers, people said, there's no way in hell, right? They were very skeptical. They felt that the folks could not use this technology, that they were incapable of learning it. But you look at what's happened in the world today, we put it out there and it started with just capturing production data, pressures and water and oil readings, whatever, meter readings and stuff. And then you bring on, of course, combined with SCADA. And then now they used it for everything. Now there's wanting more and more and more. So the world does change. And you've seen a major transformation in the industry in regards to the utilization of that information.
So since I get to ask the questions, I also get to answer the questions.